Welcome to today's guided meditation. The focus today will be on healing and mindfulness while I draw a picture of you while you're lying down. And today I'll be using chalk on the chalkboard which I have just beneath me here. So all you need to do is just lie back and listen to my voice, and that will be accompanied with the chalkboard sounds. So for now, just take a nice deep breath. Let your tummy relax as you breathe in. Hold it there for a moment. And let it out. Then breathe in again. Hold it there. And breathe out. So today we'll be using mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness is a state of being where no matter what's occurring in our lives, past, present or future, we are very focused on the now. We make very purposeful, deliberate exercises and awareness exercises towards how we are in the present state, and just repeating how we feel, respecting how we feel, and we don't pass any big judgments on that. So today's mindfulness is going to be on how images cannot affect us, how the creative images that appear in our heads, whether they be about the past or about the future, they can't harm us. We simply observe them, and we heal by the way we observe them. So if you're new to meditation, don't be disappointed if you find your mind wandering a little. It's also okay to fall asleep, and your subconscious will still hear some of what I'm saying. Meditation is something that you'll be practicing over and over again, and the more you practice it, the better you'll become. You need to think of the brain as being has neuroelasticity, and by neuroelasticity I mean that the brain can be molded to thinking a certain way. So this is why guided meditation is really good, because a lot of that thinking work has already been done for you. All you really have to do is sit back and just absorb some of what's being said. You don't have to absorb all of it. So when you meditate, you're going to create new neural pathways, new neurotransmitters, or more of them will go in a certain direction, which eventually allows your subconscious mind, which is the one that's responsible for the way we sort of feel our gut instinct towards things, that will affect how our subconscious mind works. So the more we meditate upon something, the more we will improve upon that same thing, even though it may take weeks, it may take months to improve. This is why when something traumatic occurs, if you think about neuroplasticity, when something traumatic occurs, it creates something that we feel is scarring to us. And in a sense, it is like a scar because our brains have our brains have been moulded in a way to therefore constantly think that something will go wrong. What we need to start thinking about is how we will, instead of feeling scarred, we will eventually feel healed. So alternatively, when you put a lot more practice into either positive meditation or mindful meditation, you will subconsciously become more positive and more mindful. And this is how you often get people who they go through some really tragic circumstances, yet somehow, no matter what, they always seem to have this gut instinct that everything will be fine in the end. And they know this, it's not a hopefulness, it's a knowing. It's as if there's an eternal part of themselves that knows that this is just a very large bump in the road for them. But I think what a lot of people are conditioned to do is to use their past disappointments to impress upon their future. So what happens is, as we do this, as we continually create images in our minds of a bleaker future, our brains mould and work in a way that becomes a little more permanent. So, with mindfulness, what we are trying to do is counteract the problem that occurs when perhaps you are a positive and optimistic person, but no matter what, when we are faced with a really big challenge, or even a small challenge, even an optimist may fall into the trap of going into anxiety or depression, or something will occur. Nothing can stop those chemicals in your brain from necessarily being released. So with mindfulness comes a feeling of neutrality. You're practicing neutrality for the purposes, it's neutrality and observation for the purposes of when you are faced with a challenge through which your optimism cannot necessarily pull you through. So for now, I just want you to stay with me. For some of you, of course, those of you who experience ASMR will fall into quite a deep alpha state. And for anyone else who doesn't, just remain with me and go through the process. So first of all, I want you to, I want you to do another big breath in. Hold it there, and then release. Breathe in, hold it, then release. Don't feel as if you have to do these deep breathing exercises right the way through the meditation. They should feel like just a short process that you're going through, just to become a little deeper each time. So okay, breathe in and release. So if you could just go where you are in the moment, to your present state. Perhaps you are recovering from something awful that happened any amount of time ago. Maybe you're struggling to sleep. Maybe you're really buzzing because you achieved something today. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. Perhaps something extremely unjust to you happened to you recently. You may encounter voices in your head, or you may feel distracted at points. Don't feel disappointed if this happens. This is okay. Because you're lying down, perhaps some of the tension has gone away. But the images of what may have happened, or may have happened, won't go away at this point. We have the gifts of what is the creative mind and the logical mind. On a deeper level, we have the subconscious as well. This is a part of us. It gives us our gut instincts about things and determines how we truly feel in any given situation. For instance, if you have trained your subconscious mind, as I said before, enough to think positively and also remain mindful and neutral during challenging situations, you will find that no matter what situation you end up in, no matter how depressed you are, no matter how anxious you are, there will always be something within you telling you deep inside you that you just know things are going to get better. And again, this is not a false hope. This is a knowing. This is, it's not a blind faith, it's not a false hope. And it might be buried right down there, but there is just something that tells you that it'll be okay. Because it will be. Alternatively, the mind can be trained to be wary of hope, to be pessimistic, and to base our current life based on our disappointments of our past. I generally encourage positive training as much as possible, but as I've said before, this can actually leave us in the lurch, because if we're constantly trying to think positive and then we actually encounter a situation where we feel negative, what then? So this is where our mindful thought comes in. This is where we must simply observe what's going on and just compartmentalize a little bit here. And what you need to remember is that this is an exercise. Mindfulness, it is a state of mind, but if you're not feeling like you're constantly mindful, because that's a difficult thing to do, what you do is you achieve it by just doing the exercise with yourself. Again, it's just practicing allowing your brain to slowly adapt to become more mindful. The more you do it, the more you'll find results in your everyday life. Mindfulness is what we use for when we cannot handle what's happened. How can one realistically overcome the devastation of a loved one dying? How can one feel like they're living in a just world when something incredibly unjust has happened to them? How does one become optimistic in these situations? It is possible. But in between optimism and pessimism, I think there needs to be a degree of mindfulness, and there's also a little realism coming in. Even those who are realists, in fact, realists are often the people who are most in danger here, because they believe in logic, and when all logic has failed, where else do they go? Because they don't think positive thought is having a logical impact on them. So for instance, to feel devastated that our loved ones are no longer with us, but what do? We must wait it out. We must slow down and get out of our body's way, basically, in order to heal. When something unjust happened to us, is it possible to go through everything, what happened to us from A to Z, to count it like an inventory? When anything emotional arises during this process, can we just simply thank our mind for protecting us? Because when emotions rise to the surface, that is our mind protecting us. That is our mind saying it doesn't want to experience this again. So can we simply thank our minds for this protection that it offers us, to stop us from getting into a situation like this again, or to help us process the situation better when it happens? Can we simply thank our minds for that? Okay, so I'd like you to just breathe in again. And out. And breathe in again. And out. So let's do this inventory counting exercise. Here's what I'd like you to do, if you're still with us. Here's what I'd like you to do if you're still with us. If there's anything you're going through right now that is on your mind, this will probably be one of the first things that popped up to you before when I mentioned, when I listed off a bunch of different circumstances. So just instinctively, whatever comes up in your mind right now, for things that you're going through, things that you want resolved, problems that you want resolved, or just problems of the past that are still haunting you, or problems that you're thinking about going over tomorrow. So perhaps it could be something horrible that happened to you a long time ago, or maybe you're just really nervous about a date tomorrow and you're going through all the possible scenarios in your mind. Could be anything. Okay, now I'd like you to, in your mind, go back to the very first moment that this feeling occurred. Now, in the case of those of you who are going through or encountered a really awful event, just an unjust one or anything like that, I want you to go to the very first moment that occurred, the first time you heard the news. And for those of you who are worried about something tomorrow that is not a part of anything else, I want you to go to the moment where you first encountered that feeling. Now that could be from a past experience, that could be, perhaps if it's the date scenario, it could be a date that happened and didn't go so well for you long ago. Just go back to the moment where you feel best associates with how you're feeling right now, and the first moment. Right. Now once you've done that, I would like you to imagine that you are your friend, or whoever you feel gives you the best advice. You are your friend, you are your doctor perhaps, you are your counsellor, you are your parents. You are not you, you're stepping back for a moment. You are, and the person who went through all of this is your friend, your child, your patient. And when I say patient, I'm not suggesting that we're insane or sick or anything like that. I'm just, for anyone who prefers to go to their doctor or for advice, Now, I'm going to just continue drawing for a bit, but I'd like you to very slowly and meticulously go through from A to Z all the events that occurred from start to finish or into now. Just all of the significant events or detailed events. You don't have to go into too much detail, and don't feel frustrated if you're going into any detail, or if you're not able to go into any detail. It's just small images. I'd like you to just list off each item like an inventory list. So you're seeing them as if they're on a shelf, like a shelf of scenes, and you have a little clipboard that you're holding on to, and you're just crossing or ticking them off as you observe them. If any emotions arise to the surface, just thank your mind for the input. If there's anything that's just a little too hard, just maybe just feel as if you can gloss it over. And I know it's easier said than done, glossing something over, but just if you feel like you're approaching a part of a memory that's just a little too hard at this point, just when you're ticking off a whole lot of if you've ever written a list and you've ticked off a to-do list, and some stuff you just know you've done, and so you tick it off really quickly without second guessing. If you feel as if you've gotten to a point where maybe there's a memory that you just can't deal with, just acknowledge it very quickly and then just sort of tick it and pop on to the next part. There is no right or wrong way of doing this. Your creative mind is powerful, but the images of what happened cannot harm you anymore. They are just images. And for some of you, you may finish a little earlier. That's okay. Just lie back and relax. For those of you who have finished, or for those of you who are still going, just be mindful of a bunch of boxes just behind you. This is in your mind's eye, remember. Behind you are a bunch of open boxes, and there are thousands of them, millions of them, just scrawling. For those of you who have finished, start going to the scene one by one, to the scenes one by one, and just start taking them down and popping into them to boxes. If you want, pop them all into one box. In fact, that's what I'd recommend, because we'll be carrying that box out very soon. There's no need to think about what you're putting into the box. You've already listed off everything. Maybe you'll have a little glance at a particular memory again. But again, you were checking these off as if you were a friend or a doctor or something. And if something arises to the surface, just thank your mind. The mind is there to protect us. So when we're given negative feelings towards something, it's our mind's way of preventing us from being in that situation again. And when I say preventing us, obviously there are some situations that we can't prevent, but in a lot of ways our mind doesn't know that. It's just trying to protect us the best way it can. And naturally it does that by feeding us these negative thoughts. Okay, so when you've finished, just close the box or boxes that you've put everything in. Remember, don't feel as if this has to work in a logical or physical way, because in the world of the mind or the world of the metaphysical, nothing has to work with limits. So you could be you could have been floating these images into your boxes or putting them in, and as you close these boxes, maybe they're all closing by themselves, or perhaps you're going around closing them all. Okay, so once you've done that, feel free to just pick up a bunch of those boxes, all of them. Maybe some people might come and you might have some helpers that appear and actually help you lift them. I once did this exercise with somebody, and oddly enough, the person because they were someone who were recovering from a tragic loss, the person who helped them was in fact the person who they lost. And that's the thing, for those of you who are not quite as spiritual, be open to the idea that while perhaps there is not necessarily any solid proof of certain things, be open to the fact that there still seem to be some humans are not oddly metaphysical, and the world is oddly metaphysical, in that it's all here for a reason, and things seem to go certain ways for a certain reason. And so there's nothing to really say necessarily that when you're doing this, there isn't some remains of somebody helping you out with this. Or it may, if you're not that way inclined, it may simply be a comfort to see them helping you out again, regardless of whether you feel their presence or not with you. Some of you might be struggling to lift some of the boxes, maybe they're a bit heavy. That's fine, maybe some other people are helping you out, or what I would suggest is that if they are too heavy, they're probably just going to drop through a hole in the floor. In fact, that's what they have done. If they're too heavy, they've just dropped through a hole in the floor, and you'll be seeing them very soon. I just want you to notice in front of you that a door appears. And when you walk towards this door, it is of any make, of any sort. When you walk towards this door, you see through the cracks some light. And when you open the door, you see it's a place, it's any place, and what it is a mixture, or it is some place that you feel safe. And it's a fairly large area, and it's a place that perhaps in your past, perhaps in a past life, you've been before, and you consider it to be, it's that place that nothing can really go wrong. It's that place that nothing really went wrong. Or you just felt so safe. Maybe it's the place that you go now in your physical body to feel comfort. Maybe it's a place in a book. It's a manifestation of something, some area that you feel completely safe and protected in. Nothing can get you in there. Just walk around it for a little bit. Walk around, float around. Often when we go into these worlds, we're encouraged to walk down certain pathways. But what I would encourage is just to walk around and let whatever pops up, pop up. And sometimes our mind plays tricks on us. Maybe some odd distracting images will pop up. They're not a part of this world. They're just fun little images. They can't harm you. If they appear, then just acknowledge them and bring yourself back to the safe place. Okay. Now I'd like you to look across to just a corner of where this place is. And you're going to notice a bunch of little plots, little mounds, as if things have been buried there, not to hide away, but just to keep there. A kind of keepsake that you don't really need to return to any of them, but they're just there. They're a part of our experiences. Those are the memories that at one point in your life perhaps you dealt with them. They are things you dealt with, that you've already dealt with and you've put away, and you've learnt from them, you've learnt your lessons from them, you've found peace with them. And next to them is a hole, as if it's just been dug for you by somebody else. And this hole has a nice big pile of dirt just next to it. And you walk towards it with your box. Or if your boxes were too heavy, or you had a lot of boxes, you'll notice that there are a whole lot of boxes already sitting there, or that one box is sitting there next to the hole, all ready to be put in. When you get to the hole, feel free to just place your box in there. It's not so deep, you don't need to throw it in or anything like that. Just place it in. If it was too heavy, this time, when you just give it a nudge, and it will move in by itself. For those of you who had people helping you, maybe they are helping you as well, placing the box in the hole. For some of you, there might be a couple of holes for a few boxes, but most likely that hole will be big enough for all of them. once you've done that, just feel free to step back. Let's move away from it, just towards the rest of your beautiful place. Or maybe the place, perhaps, if you ever do this one again, remember that the place doesn't have to be necessarily beautiful, it just has to be a place you feel safe. It doesn't have to be a field of green grass. It could be a factory, but one that you feel safe in. Or it could be a meadow, it could be anything. And as you walk away, you notice that the hole just fills itself. You just notice that soil just slowly builds up into that hole, and eventually it becomes covered, and a little mound appears on top, just to remind you of what happened there and what you buried. Because you didn't bury to escape from it, you just buried it to keep it there. Just to keep it safe, in a place that you feel safe in. I'd like you to go to a place in your area, in your safe area, anywhere you like, where you feel is a quiet area. And again, if any distracting things pop up, just thank them for appearing. Your mind is extremely dynamic, and we're privileged to have a mind that can just think things up on the spot. So we should celebrate that. Don't feel angry or annoyed that something pops up. Just bring yourself back to the place. I want you to repeat the following things to yourself. You don't have to voice them, just in your mind. They're like mantras. Firstly, I am not my past, but my past has given me strength and wisdom. Next one. I have been humbled by my experiences, but not broken. 3. With every moment that I sit with myself and go through a process like this, I am training my mind. 4. And this is where we just come to the closing points of this. 4. My future is not clear. 5. I can, however, attract results exactly like or similar to what I desire by improving myself in the present. 6. The present is certain, so this is when I should act. With every moment I improve myself now, I'll be thanking myself in the future. 7. Improvement now may mean sitting with pain. It may mean going through pain. It may mean going through joy. Or it may simply be lying back and letting myself heal. 8. I cannot improve by conjuring up bleak images of the future. 9. But I can be improved by simply observing these images, packaging them, and putting them away in a protective place. Because that is the truth. we cannot stop ourselves from having images of the past, of the present. This exercise will not have removed those memories for you, because there will be days you go back to them. But every time you do something like this, those memories will just become a little more distant. They'll become more like lessons, more like a fable from the Aesop's, from an Aesop's fable. They'll become these stories that people tell, or that you tell, and that's what it will be. For loved ones that you've lost, they will become beautiful memories and stories that you tell other people of those loved ones. It won't become about your pain anymore. Pain, experience, being humbled, these are part of life. Images of the future and past are also a part of life. When we're faced with images that we do not like, let us not run away from them, or push them away, or feel afraid of them, or feel afraid that we're or if we bring up an image, let's not feel afraid that we're going to attract those results. Instead, we should observe the images and just keep them in our mind as storage. Images cannot harm us. So, the next time we meet in this manner, what I might do is more of a positivity task. Where we actually focus more on positivity rather than simple observation or mindfulness. If you're still with us, I have finished the drawing. It looks very silly. Let's see if I can show you. Just make some noises with the chalk while I pick it up. And as I said before, there's no right way of doing meditation. I don't know if I quite specifically said that, but the thing is that the more you meditate, the more you will simply improve upon it and all of the things you're meditating on. It's a very slow process. For some it's really fast, but for some it'll be quite a long process. But every time you do it, it's a little bit like practicing an instrument. Every week you go back to your teacher, maybe you haven't practiced all week, but you'll still improve ever so slightly. And the same thing goes for meditation. While if you practice every day, you will significantly improve. But yeah, you will not go wrong with meditation. Don't feel disappointed about any images or anything like that pops up. And I haven't brought you out of this state either, because it's an ASMR video as well. So I'm not going to try and bring you out of this state too much, but if you're not going to sleep or anything like that right now, then you can sort of stretch yourself, just have a little stretch, a yawn, and just move your hips around a little bit, move your shoulders around, move your head around a little bit, just become more aware of the room while I show you this picture. It looks a little bit like a weird fluffy person with Catelyn Stark's mantle or something like that. Yeah, I suppose from here it looks like some random classy French person from like some old from some old period of time. I don't mean that to offend any French people, by the way. I think that would be quite offensive, saying that she looks like a French person. Okay, so thank you very much for coming in today. I really appreciate it. And I now have a Facebook page that's Micah and Modesta Studios. That's the name, Micah and Modesta Studios. So please join us on that page. So thank you very much for coming today. Sleep well, or have a wonderful, relaxing day. And be well.